tuning in. What's up, Hello News family? Welcome to another episode of the Can We Talk podcast, our show where we talk to dope people in the community doing dope things. And today is no different. And we're continuing on with our special election issue of our podcast, where we are talking to candidates, where they get to tell you more in detail who they are, their platform, and why you should vote for them. I'm so excited to have my next guest on. She is from Miami Gardens. She is a fellow chief, and she's here to tell you all why you should be voting for her. Without further ado, I would love to welcome to the show Miss Loreal Arscott. Hey, girl.
Hey, girl. Hey, thank you for having me on the show, Janae. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, definitely. Look, when I found out you were a chief, I mean, we're a little biased over here. So I like chiefs. I like Carroll City
All
chiefs.
day and tomorrow. We don't stop doing this. There it is. That's what we do. That's what we do.
Welcome to the show. Look, we're going to jump right into it because this is, like I said, our special election edition. In every election cycle, we like to talk to candidates. So before we even get into the nitty gritty of your platform and everything, I want to
Mhm.
give people an opportunity to learn more about you. Can you tell them, where you from and a little bit about your career, your background growing up in Miami Gardens or AKA Carroll City?
Carroll City for the real Chiefs. So thank you again for having me. For those of you who don't know, my name is Loreal Arscott. I am your candidate for state rep for District 107. I'm born and raised here in this great city called Miami Gardens, but really known as Carroll City. So I am the only candidate that is from Miami Gardens, born and raised. This district includes parts of Miami Gardens, North Miami Beach, North Miami, and unincorporated Dade. Essentially is everything east of 57th Avenue, right to Biscayne Boulevard, with the little corner called Eastern Shores is the outlier. So the district is very important to me. Like I said, born and raised here in this city, but I went to all public schools in this district. So even though we were living in the Bajas, before we moved to Andover, my mom ended up sending me to Matty Eyes Elementary, which is out of 199th on the way to Aventura. Then I went to Highland Oaks Middle School, where ironically I met my husband. That's a whole nother story. And then from Highland Oaks, I decided to go to Carroll City for the Law Magnet program. So I knew I wanted to be an attorney from a very early age. Let my mama tell it I wanted to be an attorney since I was 5 years old. I don't know if she's embellishing, but that's the story that we're going with. So I went to Carroll City because, first of all, it's the best high school in the world. We were the livest, as we said back then, back-to-back state champions. My family was out there. My dad graduated from Carroll City after he migrated here from Grenada. So, of course, I was going. And they had a law magnet, of course. So I went there, and then I went to Florida State for undergrad. Like I said, I never stopped doing this. And then I went to University of Florida for law school. It's not really this. It's not a Go Gators thing because it is still all about the U. But see, we got love for everybody. So, even though I went away for school, I studied abroad when I was in undergrad. I graduated a year early, like all of those good things. I knew I was coming home. I was bringing my talents back to South Beach. It's no place like home. My family's here. The weather is everything. We live where people vacation. That's what they say, right?
That part.
So I knew I was going to come home and pay it forward. So I started my career in public service. I started as an attorney for the Guardian Ad Litem program. So that's in the dependency system. For those of you who don't know, the dependency system is where children are abused, abandoned, or neglected by their parents. So the foster care system. And as you can imagine, that was a bit difficult, right? Even as a baby lawyer, I wasn't focused on making money. I was focused on how I can give back to my community and really help people. And my heart has always been in children's issues. So I thought, I would be in dependency for life, protecting the most vulnerable people in our community, our children, the elderly as well. So I started in the Guardian Ad Litem program. I then ended up going to the Department of Children and Families, where I was more of a prosecutorial role, but I had more control over my cases. I was a division chief while I was there, so that's like a supervisor. And I really began to see injustices what I perceive to be injustices in the child welfare system. The child welfare system, similar to the criminal justice system, is more disproportionately Black and brown people involved in that system.
Wow.
Well, the race abuses their children, right? But disproportionately caught up in the dependency system is African Americans, Latino, Black, brown people. So it
Mhm.
was very concerning. One of the major issues that concerned me was how we treat victims of domestic violence. So a
Mm.
woman who is doing the best that she can to try to get out of a sticky situation, if her children are exposed to domestic violence, the kids may be removed from her care. That didn't really sit right with me. And that was usually like an automatic thing. The policy changed eventually, but that didn't sit right with me. But that was what the law was. You know,
Wow, I
even
had no idea that's how that worked.
yes. And what does exposed to domestic violence mean, right? You know what I mean? So did they overhear it? Did they see it? What was that? So it was a whole situation. So a woman who's trying to get herself out of a domestic violence situation and doing the best she can to protect her children. You know, if anybody caught wind of it, she can't necessarily take them to see a therapist. She can't see a therapist because if she discloses that, therapy, any psychologist or therapist is mandatory reporters, right?
Yeah.
So you can see the problem here. So nonetheless, I left the dependency system. I left the Department of Children and Families and then went in-house for State Farm. And I did some car accidents and bodily injury, premises liability, stuff like that. But it wasn't the same. I was fighting over money instead of really helping families. So it was kind of soul draining to me. So I
Mhm.
ended up having the opportunity to work at the city of Miami Gardens, where I
Oh,
was the
wow.
assistant city attorney for the city. And it was amazing. It was a great experience. Working up the street from our high school, back in your hometown, and I began to see the tangible effects of my work once again. And I toyed with, at that point, what would be the best use of my talents? Is it enforcing the law as written as a judge or an attorney, or is it making those laws?
Mm.
So I really began leaning towards policy making even then, but never thought that I would be the candidate. I was cool with being behind the scenes.
Wow. And,
Mhm.
that was gonna be that's a great layup to my next question because I wanted to know, like, just hearing from your experience, you definitely have a heart of service and for community. So I wanted to know, like, what was that switch that made you say, I think I need to take this a step further and run for office and help change policy to improve the lives of people in my community. What was that? Like, what made you say, I want to run for office?
So it was a series of unfortunate events is usually how I say it, but I'm gonna give you a little bit more background. So throughout my career, I've been blessed to have different leadership positions. I was the president of the Wilkie D. Ferguson Junior Bar Association. I was also the president of the Gwyneth Cherry Black Women Lawyers Association. I was president of that organization 2 terms, right? I was the president of my kids' PTA. I'm the chair of the Independent Civilian Panel, which is police oversight for Miami-Dade County. So someone told me once you get known for being in leadership, like you are the go-to person, right? And even as Gwen Cherry president, folks used to ask me all the time, tell me all the time that I should run for judge. And initially, as a baby lawyer, that is the epitome of our career. You want to be a judge. Well, when I was Gwen Cherry president and I saw how the sausage was made, no way,
Mm.
honey. At that time, we were advocating very strongly to have more diversity on the bench. And by that, I mean more Black women on the bench. There was none when I was president. And we did this whole initiative with the Judicial Diversity Initiative with other Black bar associations in South Florida to change that. And because of our efforts, we see more Black women on the bench, right?
Mm.
So folks would talk to me all the time. You should run for judge. You should run for office. I got asked to run for mayor of City of Miami Gardens, run for council member for City of Miami Gardens. And I was flattered that people would even consider me for those positions. I didn't see it for myself. Even with this particular race, the series of unfortunate events was my good friend Chris Benjamin, the incumbent, decided
Mm.
that he wanted to run for judge. So Chris is also an attorney. He's also a past president of the Wilkie D. Ferguson Junior Bar Association, yada, yada, yada. We've been friends for a long time. And even when he decided he wanted to run for judge and they asked me to run for his seat, I was like, thank you. God bless y'all. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Because
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
I'm used to doing the work
Mm-hmm.
and not having to be the candidate, right? Like, let me be behind the scenes and be the king and queen maker and just really getting into the trenches. I do believe in service leadership. That's what I pride myself on. And my board members of Gwen Cherry, Wilkie D, and the PTA, I'll tell you, I'm going to work us all to death, but make sure that the work gets done, right? Um, so I guess what made it different this time around was you could only run from your destiny for so long. And for now, at such a time as this, the shenanigans that was going on in Tallahassee, what was really the icing on the cake for me, we were in where in Chicago. We were just in Chicago. We were in Chicago for the National Association of Civilian Oversight and Law Enforcement. So it's a national conference of these professionals in police oversight. And, I was coming back home and was very energized on what we can do with our panel here and, get us going. Then, less than a week after we got back from that conference that I'm all excited about, Tallahassee, the first bill preempting police oversight was introduced in Tallahassee.
Yep.
Then a week later, here comes the second bill. So basically, this is kind of a weird segue, but for those of you who don't know, Miami-Dade County had police oversight successfully for almost 30 years before it was defunded. And we started police oversight after the McDuffie riots. Arthur McDuffie, who was Miami's version of Rodney King, Black motorist killed by police officers. When the community was in outrage, rightfully so, and the riots occurred, there was a lot of mistrust between the community and law enforcement. So the original police oversight was created back then, right? After it was defunded, the community kept trying to bring it back. And finally, Commissioner Barbara Jordan, was able to introduce the legislature before she got, turned out of Miami-Dade County Commission. So now Miami had police oversight at the voters' request. Now here comes Tallahassee preempting that, essentially abolishing all police oversight throughout the state. That, I think, was the straw on the camel's back for me. Tallahassee is very unresponsive to the real needs of the community, right? So the series of anti-woke, don't say gay, now here comes police oversight on the chopping block. It was time for me to step up and to, take my voice and my concerns to Tallahassee.
Wow. And like you said, there's been a lot of interesting things. I'm trying to stay nonpartisan here, but it's been a lot of mess coming out of Tallahassee
Yes.
from our leadership and our governor. So I was going to ask you, was there anything specific out of Tallahassee too that kind of fueled you? So I'm glad you broke that down for us. For people, you talked about like what got you to run and what was that thing that sparked you that say, hey, it's my time to make a difference. Can you let them know some of the things in your platform? Like what are some things that you want to champion and do policy making around if elected for a House rep for District 107?
Right. So excuse the shirt. From the top up, I was an attorney earlier today. I was an attorney in real life. I had a hearing, and then I just left the polls too for early voting. So, part of my platform includes making sure that our residents have affordable housing, meaning that they're able to purchase and maintain their housing, right? I want to make sure that our communities are safe. So community safety is a big priority. And then lastly, I believe people should have quality schools to send their children to. So children deserve quality education. But with that, it's also peeling back all of that foolishness that came out of Tallahassee, because we can't really talk about affordable housing and complain about the high cost of property insurance when the reality is we live in a state where they tried to take the word climate change out of the statute and they don't believe in the science behind climate change. So we can't have an earnest conversation of why insurers have such high risk of liability because of all of the hurricanes that we have, which is why our property rates are so high. That's one of the reasons why the property rates are
Mm.
so high, right? We also can't talk about having quality education when our teachers can't discuss Black history in the classroom, where there's
Mhm.
a book ban and censorship on what we teach our children, where we can't discuss sexual orientation in the classroom. That's not quality education. Teachers are scared of the risk of liability. Students are not getting the full truth. They're getting the miseducation, not a real education. So these are things we need to work on all around, is to peel it all back. It's also a full circle for me. I had the opportunity of appearing on This Week in South Florida with Glenna Milberg, talking about these very issues, and was outraged every time I read, the proposed legislation. So you can definitely know that I'm versed on the issues because I've been studying these things, for some time now, and it's just full circle. It's time for us to attack it.
No, thank you for breaking that down. And just to switch gears just a little bit because, if I'm not mistaken, you're running as a Democrat, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And so just to give people a little bit of an understanding of how our state politics and government works, there's been a super majority from the Republican Party and the reason why a lot of those repressive policies that you saw got passed, like Don't Say Gay and the Police Oversight Committee, is because of the Republican rule in the state of Florida. Some critics have said that, or at least people who have been apathetic to the process, is like, how can the Democrats get anything done in Tallahassee if the Republicans have a super majority over the legislative body in the process? If elected, have you thought about like what that will be like for you maneuvering and trying to get things done? And if so, can you talk to like, that like what would you do in that position if elected?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually going to mention that too. So, as altruistic as my motives may be in trying to make sure that our voice is heard, the reality is we are in a supermajority. So that means that regardless, the Republicans have the vote. The problem is that it has not always been like that. It's like that because we Democrats have been apathetic. So if you don't show up to vote, if you don't remember Selma, as I say, if you don't remember the poll taxes that our ancestors had to overcome, the literacy tests, how folks were killed to attempt to exercise their rights to vote. If you don't exercise your right to vote, you are essentially voting for the opposition, right? So people are frustrated, rightfully so, with the government, with the oppressive policies that we see, and they don't feel like the government is reflecting what they truly want. The only way to change that is to actually get out, let your voice be heard. Your vote is your voice. So the only way we can make those changes is to flip this state back blue so that we can have the numbers in Tallahassee to put up a great fight, to make the community, make the streets' voices be heard, and to actually effectuate change. But we need people to come out and vote. So it's kind of like, Robert Rules of Order. If you do that vote by abstention, you're not going to vote. You're essentially voting for the very thing you didn't want to vote for. You didn't vote
Exactly.
against it, so you're not voting it down. So same way, if you feel like your voice is not heard in Tallahassee, by you not voting, your voice is definitely not going to be heard in Tallahassee. And all the oppressive legislation that you wanted to avoid is going to come out. That's also another reason why I ran. My mom said, listen, if you're not going to run, don't complain about them people that's in office, right?
Mm.
If you're not going to do anything to change it, don't complain about it. And that's essentially what we see. On the other hand, Janae, I do understand that if I'm worrying about paying my bills and feeding my children, I'm not caught
Mhm.
up in politics. Like, that's not my forte. It doesn't matter to me, right? And I respect that too. But if you don't vote, you're making it even that much more harder for you to feed your babies and pay your bills, because you're not voting for people who have your best interest in heart, who want to make sure that you are able to earn a living wage, who want to make sure that your children get quality education. You're voting for people who have a completely different mindset than you. That's
Yes.
what your absentee vote means.
And no, and I'm glad you broke that down because, and I wanted you to paint that picture, and I'm glad you did because I think people don't understand that if you don't have the numbers that you need, then a lot of policies that you want to get passed that will benefit a lot of people that look like me and you that come from the communities that we grew up in Carroll City and all across Miami-Dade County. Um, you won't be able to do that if you don't have the support. And so it's like one thing affects the other, and I'm glad you broke that down so people can truly understand. It's like, yeah, if you send me up there, but it's just one of me versus 100 of them, it doesn't matter how many things I present. You guys gotta get out there and vote. And even
Absolutely.
too, like some people say like ancestors or things like that, like what they went through. Like really, for me, my grandmother was born in 1944, 45. Like she literally was a part of the civil rights movement in that time. So it's really not even that far back. It's people in your family who literally did not have the right to vote, and you're squandering it because you don't feel like it's important thing. And even to your point, is like if you feel like it's tough or I got my kids or the economy is bad, when you do participate in the process, like you said, it helps out, with those things that
Mhm.
allow life to be a little bit, easier or less of a burden on you if you have policy that can improve your life.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that too, because the statistics show that older people vote at higher numbers than we do, and specifically older African Americans, older Black people than younger Black folks. And while I was out canvassing, knocking on doors on the campaign trail, one of my neighbors, he'll be 90 in October, right?
Oh,
And
wow.
he looked good. He looked very fit. Like he looked amazing. I was like, "You 90 where? Black don't crack." you know?
Wow.
So,
Mhm.
I reminded him about the upcoming election, and he's like, "Oh no, I know. I vote every election because I remember when we couldn't vote." Right.
Mm.
So he is on it. He knows the importance of his vote. He knows the struggle that we went through. And I think we have to do a better job communicating that to young folks, right? The next generation, we got to train them up so that they can step into our shoes. They are going to be taking care of us. And we take for granted, like when we were in high school, we had American government and it taught you, the importance of these type
Mhm.
of things, civics, education, all of that. It's not exactly the same now, right? So we registered to vote when we was in high school. You turn 18, you got your voter's
That's
registration
that's
application.
true.
And they
Mhm.
didn't. My niece just graduated from crop. She turned 18 in January. That was not her experience, right? So we had to do a better job training folks up and making them understand our history and all the barriers that were put in place because folks did not want us to vote. That is also another way for them to continue the systemic racism, systemic bias throughout the system, right? Is by making sure you are not informed and enlightened and that you don't exercise your right to vote. This is why we see all the voter suppression legislation that's been passed, because they are threatened by it. They understand the power. We need to convey to our community that power.
That part. Thank you for breaking that down because the people need to hear it. Oria, I want to give you just in your own words, an opportunity to, let the audience know why they should vote for you.
Well, listen, you what you see is what you get type of thing. I genuinely have a heart for service. This is what I do. This is my home. This is my community. I have a vested interest. I'm the mother of two. They are in public school. I have a vested interest in making sure that they get quality education. I'm a homeowner. I'm a business owner. I have my own law firm. My family is from here, first generation on my dad's side, not so much on my mom's side. So I am the immigrant American story, and also the homegrown story. We're a big melting pot. I have a heart of service leader. I've been through all the trenches to know what the community wants. And this is just a continuation of that service. I put on countless forums, countless workshops, estate planning, know your rights. I've moderated forums, so I've been on both sides of this. I just want to continue to serve and to give and to be that voice piece and to speak truth to power, right? To speak out against these injustices. I'm not beholden to anyone. How Shirley Chisholm said, unbossed and unbothered. Child, I'm
Mhm.
so unbothered. And I love it. I love it. And there's such freedom in that. And that's what they shook about. So you should definitely vote for me. You know that what you see is what you get. You could research me a little bit more. Loreal Arscott, L'Oreal like the makeup. The website is lorealarscott.com. Google me, ask about me, DM me, message me, whatever questions you have. I'm here for it. But come out and vote. Be informed. Be an informed voter. Do your research and come out and vote. The election is August 20th, but early voting is still going on. You got time today too. Early voting is still going on until this Sunday. There you go.
Oh, I love it. And as you look on the screen, I have L'Oreal's Instagram page up. You could follow her there and get more information about her. And this has been an amazing episode. Thank you so much for coming on and breaking things down and letting the people know why they should vote for you. Guys, got homegrown talent. We got to support it. L'Oreal, is there anything else you want to add before we head up out of here?
Yeah, I was just add the zealous advocate. Like I said, today I had to remember I'm a real lawyer. That same energy and passion that I bring for my clients, that same zealous advocacy, that's what I'm gonna continue to do for the community. I was writing op-eds and doing all type of articles and speaking all type of craziness because I had a soapbox that I could just speak my mind and it was very unfiltered. And I'm gonna continue to do that. So I need your support to get me there so that I could be your voice. Thank you guys. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Jeff.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for coming on Hollow News Can We Talk podcast. Y'all heard it right from L'Oreal. Why she deserve your vote. I think y'all, I think y'all should. I think y'all should.
Yes, let's
I
do it.
mean, if I had to talk about a chief, I mean, yes, let's do it.
Is there any question? Is it could be
Let's
only one?
do it. But thank you so much. Look, guys, all jokes aside, your voice, your vote, your choice. We're just here to give you the information. And L'Oreal broke it all down why she deserves your vote. You guys take that information and make sure you go to the polls. This has been another amazing episode of the Can We Talk podcast. Excuse me. You guys make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the things, MySpace, Black Planet, all like we're everywhere.
Not Black
No, we ain't on Black Planet, but still,
Planet, not
you
no
guys
more.
make I know, right? Do they even exist still? But yeah, guys, make sure you guys are following us on social media. Follow us, comment, engage. That's how we're able to keep doing what we're doing. Also, too, go to hallonewsmiami.com, head to our website, and you'll be able to get exclusive content that we put there for our loyal followers. Guys, it's always been a great episode. Make sure you get to the polls. Your vote is your voice. We have our candidates here breaking down why you should vote for them. And we here at Hollow News thought it was important to make sure you have a in-depth conversation with candidates from South Florida. So again, thank you, L'Oreal. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. God
Thank
bless
you.
at the polls. And we guys will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, guys. See you.